Welcome to the best year ever. We've seen a lot of groundbreaking events unfold this year, so join us for the next segment as we relive the highlights of 1954. Hi, I'm your host, Kristen Mallon, and I'll be guiding you through our tour of the best year ever. Now to Brianna D'Antonio for the year's highlights and entertainment.
Thank you, Kristen. To start off the year, The Nutcracker premiered at the New York City Ballet on February 6th. Also in New York City, on May 13th, The Pajama Game opened on Broadway. Now to television news. On September 12th, Lassie, a popular heartwarming series about a boy and his pet collie, made its television debut. Steve Allen introduced The Tonight Show on November 1st. And finally, Ed Sullivan hosted the variety show Toast of the Town, signed a 20-year contract with CBS to host the show under its new title, The Ed Sullivan Show. Now back to you, Kristen.
Thank you, Brianna. And now to our sports anchor, Katie O'Keefe.
This year has been proved to be an exciting year in sports. To kick off 1954, the Detroit Red Wings defeated the Montreal Canadiens to win the Stanley Cup on April 16th. Then, on May 6th, Roger Bannister became the first person to run a mile in under 4 minutes. In boxing news, Rocky Marciano defeated Ezzard Charles to win the heavyweight boxing title. Then, sports fans, Henry Luce, publisher of Time and Life magazine, put out the first issue of Sports Illustrated on August 16th. This year's World Series, the San Francisco Giants beat the Cleveland Indians in just 4 games. Finally, the Cleveland Browns beat the Detroit Lions 56-10 to win the NFL title. Now to commercial break.
Don't smoke. Smoking causes cancer. Love the Tobacco Industry Research Committee.
Welcome back to the best year ever. Let's continue on our tour. Popular daredevil Howard Hughes sold his newly acquired film studio, RKO, to General Teleradio in July. He earned over $23 million in the sale. Now to our on-scene reporter, Laura Pagaducci, for coverage on the marriage of sex icon Marilyn Monroe and popular baseball star Joe DiMaggio.
We're here with Marilyn Monroe. She's just been married to Joe DiMaggio. So, Marilyn, how does it feel?
I'm really excited. I love my husband very much, and I just can't wait to start the rest of my life with him. We're going to last forever.
There you have it, folks. Back to you in the studio.
Aw, look how happy Marilyn is. But 9 months later...
I'm patiently waiting outside the courthouse for the verdicts between Marilyn Monroe and Joe DiMaggio's divorce. Marilyn, after 9 short months of being married to Joe DiMaggio, how does it feel?
It's terrible.
Any other comments?
No.
Marilyn!
Oh, what a shame. 1954 was a busy year in politics. Now to Joanne Smith for our notes on communism.
In 1954, the Cold War raged on harder than ever. Eisenhower defied the beliefs of the Communist Party by adding "Under God" to the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Then, on September 8th in Manila, in order to oppose further communist gains in Southeast Asia, the U.S., Great Britain, France, and Australia formed the Southeast Asia Treaty Organization. Also, Alger Hiss, accused of communist affiliations, was released from prison on November 27th after serving 44 months for perjury.
Now on the topic of weapons of mass destruction. On the home front, we saw a rise in the creation of nuclear weapons. To start off the troubles, the U.S. debris from nuclear testing hit a Japanese fishing boat, causing radiation sickness to crew members and killing 1. This created a panic in Japan and tension between the two countries on March 1st. 10 days later, the U.S. admitted that excessive radiation had been exposed to people living on the Marshall Islands. Then, on April Fool's Day, people were able to witness the first hydrogen test as it was broadcast nationally. To permit private development of nuclear weapons, President Eisenhower signed the Atomic Energy Act on August 30th. 2 weeks later, the Soviet Union ran a test of hydrogen bombs in the southern Urals, which caused radioactive rain to fall on Japan, creating widespread panic. Now on to Brianna for more international affairs.
In 1954, the U.S. was involved with many of the international affairs aimed at keeping world peace. Starting in late January and continuing till mid-February, the U.S. was involved in the Berlin Conference with other foreign ministers.
I'm here at the Berlin Conference with French, British, Soviet, and U.S. ambassadors are discussing the terms for German reunification, arms control, the admissions of the People's Republic of China into the United Nations, and the Soviet proposal for the abandonment of a European defense community.
Although this did not yield any major results. Also, on October 2nd, the members of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization admitted West Germany into their alliance. After much controversy over the Suez Canal in Egypt, Great Britain and Egypt signed a treaty giving control of this to Egypt. Finally, on December 1st, the United States and Nationalist China signed a mutual security pact. Now to Joanne to cover Eisenhower's presidency.
As well as assuring international security, Eisenhower focused on strengthening homeland security. The U.S. tested the efforts of the nation in a test of preparedness against nuclear attacks. Eisenhower also proposed an interstate highway system for reasons of national defense. Here's Laura Paganucci covering the signing of the Housing Act. We're here in the Oval Office with President Eisenhower, who's signing the new Housing Act, which will provide 35,000 new housing units. Unfortunately, due to some restrictions in the bill, not all housing units will be built. Eisenhower also declared loyalty to Taiwan in the event of a communist invasion, after 8 communist gunboats were sunk off the coast of Taiwan. He also established a radar station on the 55th parallel between U.S. and Canadian borders in the event of a Soviet air attack. Now back to Katie with the latest technology of 1954.
During 1954, the U.S. saw new advances in the aircraft and submarine industries. On January 21st, the Nautilus, the first ever atomic-powered submarine, was launched. On July 19th, the first Boeing 707 passenger jet made its maiden flight, and the U.S. icebreakers became the first vessels to sail completely through the Northwest Passage from the Atlantic to the Pacific Oceans on August 27th. Finally, the Forrestal, the world's largest aircraft carrier, was launched by the U.S. on December 12th. Now to Brianna for the most controversial issue of the year, segregation and integration.
This year has also continued to break the lines of civil rights. First, on May 17th, the Supreme Court made its landmark ruling in the case of Brown versus the Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas, in which its members strike down the separate but equal doctrine that permitted the racial segregation of public schools. Almost a month after the ruling, 10 other politicians declared that they would not comply with the Supreme Court's ruling. Finally, in the midst of all this controversy, Assistant Secretary of Labor James Wilkins became the first African American to attend a presidential cabinet meeting. We'll be back right after this commercial break.
Buy Elvis Presley's new record in stores today.
To wrap up our coverage on 1954, we have found the most interesting stories of the year. The first mass polio vaccinations were administered in Pittsburgh on February 23rd, following the creation of it by Dr. Salk. We have also saw on March 1st Puerto Rican nationalists open fire in the House of Representatives and resulted in 5 wounded congressmen. Then on July 3rd, we saw the bloody axe against Marilyn Shepard when she was bludgeoned to death in her home when allegations of his extramarital affair became public. On December 2nd, by a vote of 67 to 22, U.S. Senate condemned Senator McCarthy for his behavior during the Army-McCarthy hearing and toured the Senate. What an exciting year! Thank you for tuning in as we recall the highlights of 1954. Join us next year for the best year ever, 1955.